So we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We give you the actual definition, and then we make fun of that because usually it's something we can't understand. And then we give you a working definition, which frequently makes the experts break out into hives, but it gives us a platform from which to begin to understand these terms, use them in our lives, and get to the progress that they help us to get to. So today's term is SD. You will hear experts talking about the SD. What's the SD? What's the SD? What does that stand for? Well, that stands for discriminative stimulus. And you'll notice that it's normally, it's an uppercase S and it's an uppercase D, but the uppercase D is smaller, even though the phrase starts with discriminative stimulus. Please don't ask me why that is the scientific notation for it, but it stands for discriminative stimulus. So let's take a look at what our actual definition is first of discriminative stimulus. It is a circumstance, and I'm having to read it off the screen because I'm blind today without my iPad. A circumstance or action that precedes reinforcement. Okay. If we know a little bit about ABA, that might make a certain amount of sense. But I don't know about you. I want to know, what does it look like? So let's go ahead and go to our working definition and see. Our working definition is what you say or do to get the child to do the desired behavior. So we've talked about ABA before, and that ABA is this really all-encompassing teaching method that helps us to get from point A of learning something to get to the point where we say, by George, I think he or she has got it, right? The skill is ours, and we know how to use it in all circumstances and are even able to take in new information about things that we've never been taught before, right? That's the goal when you're teaching anybody anything, right? So, what we usually do in ABA is take and chunk whatever this skill is that we're trying to teach into small bites, right? Little itty bitty skills that we can put together to make a big skill, or that we're trying to get it to a small place where we can begin to build the muscle to be able to do something, right? Because sometimes it requires one or the other. But and then we want to make it so that the person is successful at each different goalpost that they're trying to learn this. So for instance, if what I wanted to do is to teach someone to say their name, and let's say their name was Rebecca, right? I might start with trying to just get them to say "ruh," and then I would get them to say "buh." I've got Lux blocks flying in on me. And then I might teach them just the beginning syllable, "ruh," right? To get them to make that sound. And then I would give them reinforcement. Okay, whatever I do, now I need you to stop though. You're building towers and they're trembling. This is what parenting is all about, right? But in any case, so we want to make it reinforcing for the individual to keep doing it, because otherwise, who wants to keep doing something that they don't have perfectly, right? You want to get something for having done something. You want your paycheck, right? So that's the reinforcement. So the SD is whatever we do or say that signals to the person, if you do this, then I'm going to give you a reinforcer. It's a way of setting up a teaching moment, and it starts with an SD. And the SD can be anything. It can be words, it can be a gesture, it can be showing something to somebody, but you're setting up the circumstances to say, hey, this is a learning moment. And by the way, because it's a learning moment, if you get it right, you're going to get a paycheck for it. And the paycheck is individual to the person. The SD is individual to the person and to the task and where you are in the task. So it may be that I've got a little girl that I'm trying to teach her to say Rebecca, right? And the first thing that I'm going to do is teach her to do the R sound, right? So my SD might be me pointing to my own lips and going R, right? That could be the SD. Or it could be me holding up a card that has the letter R on it. It could be that I point to her lips, right? It's going to be different, but the SD is whatever we say or do to get the desired response that leads to the reinforcement. So you can see SDs are wide and varied, but when you hear your therapist talking about, and they'll say, well, we're teaching this lesson, and somebody says, what's the SD? Then it's whatever the thing is that starts the lesson. It's what you say or do or point to that precedes them doing the action, and then they get the reinforcement. If you think about it, when we talk about the ABCs of behavior, we talk about that there's an antecedent, a behavior, and a consequence. Well, the antecedent is the SD. It's the thing that happened first, then we got the behavior, and then the consequence when we're teaching is the reinforcement. So the SD comes first, they do the behavior, and then hopefully if they got it right, they get a reinforcement that means something to them. So the SD, the thing you say or do to get that, and this is the way we begin to teach. It is not the be-all, end-all. There are many things along the way, but when you're trying to teach, am I keeping you awake? He's over here yawning. When you begin to teach somebody, this is a really easy way to get someone to want to learn. Is by using that SD, getting the behavior, and giving the reinforcement. It's more effective than any other teaching method. And it happens to work for our kids on the autism spectrum. But by the way, it works for everyone.